continuing the Viking Portable Library World Bible, the Jew and the Christian. And the Jew saying, welcome, Christian, but settle down. Selections from the Judeo-Christian scriptures, from the book of Exodus, the beginning of persecution. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass, that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. And in Goshen there was an area with a couple thousand of them, so there was a territory that they could have lost. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. And all their service, wherein they made them serve, was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other, Puah. I don't remember what that means, I'm sorry. And he said, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see that upon the stools, if it be a son, then he shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the kingdom of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. Now, when it comes to past persecutions, yes, take lessons from them, but don't suffer about what didn't happen to you or anybody you knew, for that matter. So, the birth of Moses. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, and she hid him 3 months, and when she could not longer hide him, and she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein. And she laid it on the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off, to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And behold, she had opened it, and she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept, and she had compassion upon him, and said, This is one of the Hebrews' children. And said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and she said, Because I drew him out of the water. And Moshe means keeper of the sheep, but Musa, the Arabic name, has that meaning. The burning bush and the name of God. And Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the back side of the desert, and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside, and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him Yahweh. I don't like it saying Lord when the text has that tetragrammaton. God is a noun and a verb. God called to him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Draw not nigh hither. Put up thy shoes from off thy feet. From the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. And I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And it's not just a cleanliness thing, it's reenacting the myth why a lot of houses of worship, and some of the busiest houses of worship in America, you take off your shoes. And Moses hid his face, and he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I knew their sorrows, and I come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them out of that land, and unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, and to the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, Certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee, that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain. And Moses said unto God, Behold, when I am come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers hath sent me unto you. And they shall say to me, What is his name? And what shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. Ahya is another tetragrammaton. Yea is yet another tetragrammaton. Adoni is now, in Hebrew, is a tetragrammaton, but in the language of Tanukh, it's actually spelled with a wow in the middle. The Passover is instituted. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood, and strike it on the two side posts, and on the upper doorpost of the house, wherein they shall eat it. Not the blood, but the animal that they collected the blood from. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. And thus ye shall eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And ye shall eat it in haste. In this, it is the Lord's Passover. Pasach also means hop. Hence the term Passover, because Passover sounded more coherent than it's the hopping holiday. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. and the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt. I'm sure there could have, certainly other people would have witnessed this, and it's like, what sort of blood magic are all these people doing? They meet together and they come back and smear their homes with blood. So. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it for a feast unto the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day unto the 7th day, that soul shall be cut out from Israel. And on the first day there shall be an holy convocation. On the 7th day there shall be a holy convocation unto you. No matter of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, and that only may be done of you. And ye shall observe the fast of unleavened bread. And in other cultures, this was like September, August sorts of festivals. So their Passover would have been more like around then. Maybe even as late as early October, but and the New Year would have been in March. Biblical New Year is in March. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for in the same self-day I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore ye shall observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. In the 1st month, on the 14th day of the month, at even ye shall eat unleavened bread, until the 21st day of the month at even. And there was some switching around the calendar and stuff like this. And so the Jewish religion kept with what they call the spirit, and they changed the form when they moved into Persia and came back and formed what could be called Judaism. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses, for whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel. Whether he be a stranger or born in the land, ye shall eat nothing leavened. In all your habitations ye shall eat unleavened bread. And the children of Israel went away, and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. So did they. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, unto the highborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of the cattle. And in terms of famine and other sorts of disasters, the firstborn could have died more because it was tradition to give the oldest more food in that time. And if the crops had faced a degree of freezing because of hail or were wet and developed mold, and that's one of the things that could have happened. And if there was gas, having the high bed and catching everything that rose, again, could have killed people if there was some sort of natural gas leak. And there has been cases of that where hundreds or even thousands of people have died because there's been like some minor earthquake or some cave-in and it released gas onto a village or city. Where the Pharaoh sent his stone and the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, all the firstborn of cattle. Now, that's an exaggeration. Islam doesn't believe in the 10th plague, at least not in a literal sense. It's not listed as such. Certainly people would have died from the other plagues, but they specifically don't believe in the 10 plagues. A series of plagues, yes, but less than 10. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go, serve the Lord, as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, We be all dead men. And the people took their dough, before it was leavened, their kneading troughs, being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. Well, there can be justification for the oppressed and the downtrodden to steal for the rich, but borrowing is not happening here. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required. And they spoiled the Egyptians. Well, the Egyptians were spoiled, so they got spoiled. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men, besides children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, and even very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of dough, which they brought out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. They crossed the Red Sea. Yam Suf. It's the Reed Sea, not the Red Sea. And the Quran doesn't have this too. It's like, really? Something that requires not just level 1 hurricane force winds, but further up the scale than that for, hours or days, basically. And climbing what would be a difficult mountain climber for people who went hiking in the Himalayas, sorts of thing. It was like, really? You're dragging men, women, and children, even babies, across this, and you're outrunning troops? Not going to happen. But if you know your way around a tidal marsh and the tide comes out. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God let them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. People go back on, hey, we're leaving, we're going to get our freedom. No. And they returned to Egypt. But God led the people about through the way, the wilderness of the Red Sea, Reed Sea. And the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud, and led them the way by night in a pillar of fire, to give them light to go by day and night. Well, if God wants to show a sign like that, but that sounds more like a jinn. A fire being, the fallen angels, the Davas, the Asuras, the Fari, whatever you want to call them, the elementals. But night and a pillar of fire to give them light, to go by day and by night. Yeah, it makes God sound limited in terms of space, too. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people, and they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot, and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. And he pursued after the children of Israel. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And they were sore afraid, and the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Moses, Wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel, that they go forward, but lift up thou thy rod, and stretch out thy hand over the sea, and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind. And the pillar of the cloud went before them, their face, and stood behind them, and it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that one came not near the other all the night. Exodus 14:19 through 21, isn't that the part where you get the Shemham Forosh? And the angels of the Shemham Forosh by adding Al and Yah to the end, meaning Emmanuel is not God. It's more like an angel name, which can be human names, because, Daniel. Isn't there an angel Daniel too? And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them. The Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel. For the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thy hand over the sea, and the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned his strength. When the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariots, and the horsemen, and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the land of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. God gives Moses the 10 Commandments. In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai, and there Israel camped before the mount. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mount. And the Lord called Moses up to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. Mount Sinai, of course, anything on that peninsula, right? But particularly on that corner that's strangely like burnt looking from the sky. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mount. And the Lord called Moses up to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. Yahweh, Yahweh, say the formula. Say that name. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which hath brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. So, who's Jesus and the Holy Ghost? Here's a question for the Christians. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or in that which is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto the thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Now I'd venture, when it comes to criminal identification drawings, okay, here's who we're looking for, or identifying some danger or something, there could be an exception to that. And certainly there's a difference between a graven image and the letter Aleph, which would be an ox head, or even the extent of the Yud being the arm and the hand, or the Arthagam being the foot or boot, or the ein being the eye. So when this was originally written, graven images meant drawing these things for drawing these things, yes, but you're making letters. So hieroglyphs were considered okay. And this sort of idea arose even before that, closer to the people who thought that Abraham was a prophet. The Baknaturwa, which existed 2200 to 1700 BCE in Egypt. Ibrahim was one of their prophets, and they said that whenever a graven image is making an evil fire being, they're writing in hieroglyphics, but they're not trying to depict gods and stuff like this, and they're minimizing sometimes. They began to minimize hieroglyphic script, which Cairo Museum Stela 666 has. It's more like regular hieroglyphs, but it's minimized in parts to make clear what the letter is, but the heretic and the demotic script developed from that, but I'm sidetracking. Thou shalt not take the name of thy Lord thy God in vain, for thy Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. And the word here, profanity, but profanity it has to be sacredly and it has to be seriously, the mention of God. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day, sunset Friday to sunset Saturday, is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. And in it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Well, God resting. I'm not going to worship a God like that. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long in the land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee. And sometimes disobeying your parents is the best honor you can give them. But don't disobey just on principle or to rebel. But respect all your family. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. What about stealing all that stuff from the Israelites, from the Egyptians? Thou shalt not, well, again, it was sort of their stuff. They worked for it, and they didn't get their wage. They're being oppressed. And watch there be, at some point, a rising up of the Americans, 3 people working for this job of wage of one person on average compared to the early 60s. It's like, stuff's on the edge of happening. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. If you don't know something, keep your mouth shut. Don't just repeat rumors and, accusing people of all sorts of horrible things because of what group they're a part of or whatever. There's just too much of that going around. And if there was more punishment for making false witnesses of stuff you didn't even can't even testify to. Thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass. We needed some people need, we thought this was hilarious in church, covering his neighbor's ass. Isn't that what the girls do? That sounds a little gay. If it's like, there'd be conversations like that. Of course, I knew better right away, but nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Further laws. He that smiteth a man so that he die shall surely be put to death. If men strive, jihad, that's what jihad is. It's not holy war, striving. But not in this way. Not in this way. And hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall surely be punished, according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. Killed my unborn child. Some people aren't going to survive this. However, the husband deems fit to punish him. Yeah, people are going to die. And shall pay as the judges determine, if he lives. And if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. If a thief be found breaking up, and be smitten that he die, there shall be no blood shed for him. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. And if her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. I say freedom of religion, but apparently the Bible's, if you worship demons, or make pacts with demons, some people are going, I'm not worshiping demons. You are. Whoever lieth with a beast shall be surely put to death. Bestiality is a death penalty in the biblical way. He that sacrificed unto any god, save unto the Lord only, he shall utterly be destroyed. Thou shalt neither vex a stranger, nor oppress him. What about that forcing him to only be part of your religion? For ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry unto thee, cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. If thou lend money to any of the people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as a usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. No charging interest. You're not making money off of people being poor, and, I found someone that's poor. Thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. Don't blaspheme other faiths. And I've witnessed that yesterday. Somebody who doesn't even know what's a faith is, and saying what he said. And in all these things I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, lest they be heard out of thy mouth. Moses is given the tablets of stone. And he said unto Moses, Come up unto thy Lord, and unto Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship ye afar off. And Moses alone shall come unto the Lord, come near the Lord, and they shall not come nigh. Near thy people go up with him. And went up Moses and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and they saw the Lord God of Israel, and there were under his feet, as it were, a paved work of sapphire stone, and as it were, the body of the heavens in his clearness. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel he laid not his hand. And they saw God, and did eat and drink. And the Lord said unto Moses, Come up unto me into the mount, and be there, and I will give thee the tablets of stone and the law, and the commandments which I have written, and thou mayst teach us them. And Moses rose up, and his minister Joshua, and Moses unto the people of God. And Moses went up into the mount, and saw a cloud covered in the mount, and the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days, and the seventh day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud, and the sight of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire upon the top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went in the midst of the cloud, and got up in the mountain, and Moses was in the